Hey folks, if you want to stay on top of the latest breaking stories, make sure to follow S News for more updates like this one. Don't forget to support us by subscribing, liking, and dropping a comment below. We really appreciate it.
Russia's air defenses are in question after a massive drone attack on Moscow.
Russia says it's ready to move quickly toward a peace deal in Ukraine. But on the night of July 20th, Russia's Ministry of Defense announced that it had shot down 142 drones, including 27 over the Moscow region alone.
At exactly 6 o'clock in the evening, local time, Moscow faced something it had never seen before, a massive, coordinated drone strike on the capital.
Moscow's mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, said at least 21 drones targeted the city.
But the Ministry of Defense claimed it had taken down 93 drones overall, including 19 directly over the city. The conflicting numbers raised immediate questions about the actual scale of the attack and how effective Moscow's air defenses really were.
Despite the official statements, the results told a different story. Fires broke out all across the city. Key infrastructure was damaged, and Moscow's three main airports, Vnukovo, Domodedovo, and Sheremetyevo, were forced to shut down, stranding thousands of people and bringing air traffic to a halt. The events of that night challenged Russia's long-standing narrative, the image of Moscow being protected by an impenetrable air defense system.
So how could key landmarks be hit if nearly all drones were supposedly destroyed?
The discrepancy between the official numbers and the destruction on the ground became impossible to ignore. Reports of burning vehicles and falling debris came from at least 7 different districts. This wasn't just an isolated incident. It suggested that several drones had managed to slip through Moscow's multi-layered defenses. Local residents added to the growing doubts.
A taxi driver described seeing a sudden flash in the sky, followed by debris and a nearby car exploding.
One resident who had taken shelter in her home recalled feeling suddenly vulnerable, like the city was no longer safe. These personal stories, along with the physical evidence, made it clear that the Russian government's narrative was, at best, incomplete.
Russia's defense strategy relies heavily on a mix of advanced missile systems and electronic warfare designed specifically to stop aerial threats.
But Ukraine's swarm tactics overwhelmed them. By launching drones from multiple directions all at once and using decoy flight paths, Ukraine forced Russia to split its attention and resources. The damage in Moscow showed that some drones got past the defenses entirely.
The 3 major airports, Vnukovo, Domodedovo, and Sheremetyevo, were all shut down. Flights were delayed or cancelled for hours, affecting, over 134 flights on July 20th alone. Since May, more than 1,000 flight disruptions have been linked to drone threats, exposing weaknesses in Moscow's infrastructure.
Yeah, and honestly, these repeated shutdowns are a huge deal. They don't just mess with travel plans. They really highlight just how vulnerable the city's critical infrastructure has become.
The psychological effect was just as significant. Moscow had long been seen as untouchable, protected by systems like the Panzer S-1, but the July 20th attack shattered that confidence. Scenes of burning vehicles, damaged buildings, and emergency crews racing to multiple locations undermined the sense of control the city had always projected.
Despite government attempts to control the narrative, video clips and photos spread fast. People's sense of safety took a real hit. The illusion of Moscow's invincibility was gone. The clear gap between government claims and reality raised big questions about how effective Russia's air defenses really are. The July 20th drone strike proved that even the most heavily guarded cities are vulnerable, and that a sense of security can vanish overnight. The damage wasn't just physical. It left a deep psychological scar and broke public trust in the systems meant to keep people safe.
As things began to calm down, Muscovites were left to face a new reality. Our faith in an untouchable capital had been shaken. The question wasn't just how the city would recover, but how its people would deal with what had just happened. What was it like to live through that night when the myth of safety turned into panic and fear?
In the early morning hours of July 20th, the tightly controlled calm of Moscow was shattered. Around 2:45 a.m., explosions echoed across the city, with flashes of light lighting up the night sky. Smoke began rising from multiple areas. It was clear that this wasn't some isolated incident. It was a well-coordinated strike.
People were suddenly awake and unsure of what was going on. For many, it was a personal experience. In Kunsevo, I heard about a mother who grabbed her children and hid under the bed while drones buzzed overhead. By morning, 3 cars were burning outside her building. The violence had come straight to places where families once felt safe.
The city's long-standing image of being untouchable gave way to a real sense of vulnerability.
People working night shifts found themselves in the middle of chaos. A taxi driver near the Moscow Ring Road described a sudden flash, someone shouting, "Run! It's a drone!" And then a nearby car exploded. Debris flew everywhere. Regular city life turned into scenes of destruction.
By dawn, at least 7 areas had been affected, including Kuntsevo and Novaya Seltseva. Videos showed burned-out cars near the OKO center and drone wreckage scattered on the streets.
The impact wasn't limited to just one part of the city. The attack had hit hard across multiple districts, forcing residents to face the reality that even the most secure neighborhoods were no longer safe. The carefully maintained image of a well-protected Moscow collapsed under the weight of visible chaos.
The psychological toll matched the physical destruction. People who once trusted Moscow's defenses began to question everything. The war in Ukraine no longer felt far away. It had reached their front doors.
There was a clear and growing gap between the government's assurances and what people were seeing with their own eyes. The nighttime timing made things worse. Most residents were asleep when the attack happened, adding to the confusion and fear. Families were forced to leave their beds for makeshift shelters, and the city's most iconic buildings, symbols of its power, became targets.
The morning air still carried the smell of burnt wreckage, a harsh reminder that the capital wasn't immune to the reach of modern warfare. The drone strikes weren't just disruptive, they were calculated to have psychological impact.
The government's claims that the threat had been nearly neutralized didn't match what people saw. At least 7 districts showed signs of direct hits or fallen debris. Cars were burning, infrastructure was damaged, and pieces of drones were everywhere. The official story couldn't hide the damage. The difference between what was said and what actually happened made people lose even more faith in their government and highlighted just how limited Moscow's air defenses really are.
For the first time since April 2024, all 3 major airports shut down at once.
Vnukovo, Domodedovo, and Sheremetyevo went offline, halting flights, stranding thousands, and delaying or cancelling over 100 flights in one day.
The economic and logistical fallout added another layer to the crisis.
The effects of that night rippled far beyond the city itself.
The attacks didn't just hurt Moscow's image of security, they exposed real cracks in its core infrastructure.
The shutdown of air travel, along with visible damage across multiple neighborhoods, forced both officials and everyday people to rethink what safety really means in the capital. The July 20th events raised a much bigger question. How can a well-planned drone strike bring not just daily life, but an entire city's operations to a stop?
This was a strategic blow aimed directly at Moscow's core.
The drone strike focused on the city's busiest airports, leading to their complete closure.
In just one day, at least 134 flights were either delayed or redirected.
Over the weekend, more than 1,000 flights were affected.
And it happened right in the middle of tourist season, causing chaos for travelers and airlines alike.
And this wasn't a one-time thing.
Since May, drone-related closures have hit Moscow's airports again and again.
Domodedovo alone has seen over 60 hours of shutdowns in the past 3 months.
Sheremetyevo cancelled more than 170 flights in one incident.
This is part of a much wider trend.
Since the start of 2025, Ukrainian drone strikes have forced shutdowns at 217 Russian airports, 4 times more than the year before.
The long-term effect is an ongoing attack on Russia's ability to maintain reliable air travel, with ripple effects hitting logistics, businesses, and daily routines.
Financial losses have been huge.
According to Novaya Gazeta, the airport shutdowns in May alone cost Russia $122.78 million, and the July 20th strike will likely add millions more.
Around 1,000 flights have been cancelled since May, and over 430 planes had to be rerouted.
At least 200,000 passengers, about 1 in every 10, were affected.
And it's not just airlines feeling the pain.
Airport operators, ground services, and the broader travel sector are all taking hits.
Despite these losses, Russia's aviation authority Rosaviatsia has refused to compensate airlines, putting all the financial pressure on private companies. Ukraine's focus on airports isn't just a side effect, it's a deliberate strategy meant to hurt Russia's economy and morale.
Every airport closure sends a message. The war isn't far away, it's right here.
The psychological impact grows as images of grounded planes, packed terminals, and stranded passengers spread across social media and news outlets.
Moscow's image as a secure and well-managed capital is taking a serious hit.
For a government that prides itself on control, the repeated airport shutdowns are a major weakness.
Ukraine's approach reveals a new kind of warfare. Its drone swarms, cheap and launched from multiple directions, expose the limits of Russia's air defense systems, which were built to handle more traditional threats.
The drones force Russia to waste expensive interceptor missiles and electronic warfare tools, slowly draining resources.
Even when Russia successfully shoots some of them down, the overall impact is constant disruption.
This isn't just a battlefield war. It's a war on the economy and public confidence.
Moscow has become unpredictable.
The summer travel season, usually a time of profit, has turned into a period of uncertainty.
The effects are being felt not just in the capital but across nearby regions, hurting Moscow's role as a reliable gateway for business and tourism.
Every airport shutdown is a signal. War has evolved.
Ukraine is using disruption as a weapon.
Burned-out terminals, delayed cargo, and frustrated travelers show that this conflict now targets everyday life, not just military forces.
As the drone attacks continue, the big question is, how long can Russia handle the growing cost, financially, socially, and strategically, without changing its tactics?
The July 20th strike was proof of how effective this approach can be. It showed that even well-defended cities can be paralyzed.
This isn't just a story about Moscow, it's a sign of how war is changing everywhere.
Hey, thanks for sticking with us and listening to the story. Don't forget to follow S News and check out our future videos. And yeah, please subscribe, like, and